going to be performed for our blog, and also the long-form version of the story is available in publication. So here we go. Hannah was the name that I chose for myself. It was feminine, but solid, not slutty. It wasn't like Candy or Nikki or Kiki, the glassy names the other girls chose for themselves. I wasn't blonde with big boobs. I wasn't Asian and exotic. I just couldn't wear those porn names. Juliet, who hired me, was 6 feet tall with long, straight blonde hair, a bottle tan, and a little business suit with skirts that only came up to her thighs. She said she was from Switzerland, but I suspected Russia or the Ukraine was more likely. Not beautiful, she said. Depend on personality. We give it a try. I had to get a beeper and a wax job and new fingernails and lingerie, but the sticky part was reliable transportation. Besides public, I only had my unicycle, the sentimental remnant from my undergraduate years when I taught juggling and circus arts at the special kids camp. I'd only started at City Escorts because I was getting my doctorate and there was a full 12 months before my teaching fellowship kicked in. According to Juliet, I could work weekend nights and I'd have my expenses covered. My first call was the guy at the Hyatt. When I got outside his room, I could hear the TV blaring. I knocked. A businessman in his late 40s with curly brown hair and his boxer shorts answered the door. Inside, he was doing lines of coke on the table and pacing around with the TV on. I spent 2 hours there watching him do coke and watch TV. At the end, he gave me $450. How did it go? Juliet asked when she called his room at the end of our date. The escort management always called after the first hour, and if the client wanted you for another hour, they called after the second. Just fine, I said. 2 hours not bad, she said. Congratulations. On my way out of the Hyatt, I was beeped again. I called Juliet from a payphone. I got the guy in the Mission, she said. Told me the address, just off Valencia. He's regular. He likes it clean. Clean? I asked, scribbling down the address. What does that mean? No dirt in the nails, no holes in the stockings, no shoes in his house. Clean. Took a night bus to the Mission. I walked 2 blocks in the dark and rang the doorbell of a second-floor apartment. The man who answered the door was in his 30s, wholesome-looking and fit, with Clark Kent glasses. He looked me up and down, told me to undress, and told me to get into bed with him. He jacked off and asked me questions. I told him about college and the special kids camp. At the end of the hour, Juliet called, the guy gave me cash, and I left. Saturday night, I got 2 more calls, and Monday I dropped off $1,200 in cash to the City Escort Service. My take-home with tips was $500. What struck me most about the jobs as the weekends went by was how few of the men wanted sex. At least half of them were doing drugs when I came over, upper-type drugs that left them horny but unable to perform. One guy had me pull down my panties and bend over while he looked at my butt. Another wanted to hold my bra. A month went by and I had 15 calls and not one of them for sex. Meanwhile, I went to my classes and did not tell anyone about my new job. Certain feminist circles, I realized, might think working for an escort service was cool, liberating in some way, post-feminism or something like that. But I didn't think it was particularly cool. I liked the money, and that was all. And Juliet treated me like shit, but she kept sending me out on jobs. I kept bringing back the cash. One night I got a call at the remarkably early hour of 9 p.m. The guy at a business class hotel at the wharf. I took a cab there, went up to the guy's room. A short, somewhat chubby, middle-aged man in a towel answered the door. He had the sweetest face I had ever seen. Hi there, he said. Please come in. I'm Al. Hannah. He shook my hand. Hi, Hannah. That's a beautiful name. Nice to meet you. Would you like a drink or something? No, thanks. I'm fine. He sat down somewhat nervously on the bed. I took off my jacket and looked at him in my miniskirt and beaded top. You're a very pretty girl, Hannah, he said. He said it in a way that was so sincere and so appreciative that it took me by surprise. I had never made a first move on any of my calls, but I found myself actually wanting to make this man happy. Thank you, Al, I said, walking over to him. Is there anything I can do for you?
Oh, boy. I've never done this before. I'm a married man. Maybe that's obvious. Oh, boy.
It's okay, Al, I said. We can take it really slow. It's totally up to you. Al pulled me towards him and held me tight.
You're a nice girl, he said, holding me, both of us on our sides. Are you from San Francisco?
I felt like I was talking to one of my uncles. Actually, I spent some time in Boston, too, when I was in college. I told him where I'd gone to school.
Gosh,
He said, shaking his hand and holding me.
that's a great school.
He was quiet for a few minutes, holding me.
Is there anything
I can do for you? I asked again. For a few moments he was quiet, and I thought maybe I was going to experience my first sexual encounter on a call, but then I realized he was crying.
My wife has cancer. Oh, boy, I've never done anything like this before.
He held me tight while I cried.
You seem like such a nice girl, and
I'm sorry, he said, crying again.
It's okay, I said, stroking her. It's okay, Al.
He'd been married for 32 years. His wife was his high school sweetheart, and they'd spent their honeymoon in Jamaica. She was the love of his life and a piano teacher. He was a salesman, now working in management. A little while later, Al took the call, wiping back tears. I could hear Juliet's harsh voice asking if he wanted another hour.
Nah, that's okay, he said. She's a great girl.
I got up and put on my jacket. Al went to his coat and handed me $400.
Take it, keep it. You're a nice girl, he said, reaching out and holding my hands. You remind me of my daughter.
Thank you, sweetie.
Thank you, Al. I'm sorry about your wife. I hope things get better for you. Is there anything I can do for you? I hate to see a nice girl like you, I thought for a moment.
Please call Juliet at the agency. Tell her I was good. Tell her I was the best you ever had. Weekends turned into months at the city escort agency. Just like I'd done at McDonald's as a teenager and at my work-study job in the campus bookstore in college, I began to feel strangely comfortable in my job, despite the bullshit. I'd become tolerant of Juliet's insults, her paranoid inquiries, her threats not to send me on any more calls. One of my clients told me Juliet had once been a lowly escort, and I was delighted to receive this scandalous piece of information. I did my first twosome with a speed freak named Sheila and 2 software programmers at the airport Hilton. I went on a pickup, which was when a guy pays for 3 different girls to come over and then takes his pick. I made friends with a Russian escort, a young girl whose real name was Irina, and I helped her several times with her ESL homework. It was summer that I got sent on a call just a few blocks from my house.
There's one thing,
Juliet said, her tone taking on a quality I'd never heard before, vaguely sympathetic.
She's woman.
In my 3 months of work, I had not once been asked on a call with a woman. There was one incident where I was walking home from a call and I passed a disheveled-looking hooker who would ask me if I wanted a trick. I am a trick, I said back. The woman slapped her head and said, "Oh," as if she was a waitress and had just fumbled my egg order. The woman's place in the mission was a nice-looking 2-story house a few blocks from Clarion Alley. I opened the little gate at the bottom of the stairs and knocked on the door. A few seconds later, a young woman answered. I thought for a moment I might have the wrong house, but she smiled and said, "I'm Janie, would you like some wine?" Her hair was in 2 braids, and she was wearing the kind of shorts when we were to go hiking with a tank top. "I've never really done this before," she said, "and I totally want you to know that if anything makes you uncomfortable, please let me know." Took a sip of the wine. "Okay." "I really only want to talk to you," she said, looking at me with big, clear, young blue eyes. "I'm just really trying to understand what it's like to be an escort." I was taken aback. More than on any other one of my calls, I felt a sudden jolt of apprehension. This young woman wanted me to be her sociology study. My father saw a lot of escorts, call girls, I guess, or sex workers.
I hope it's okay if I just ask you questions and then you can just answer them as much as you want to. Or if you feel uncomfortable, you can totally just stop. For the next 2 hours, I relied on the ultimate coping mechanism that I had used on a date only once. I lied. I told Janie I was addicted to crack, and then later I said I was strung out on heroin. I told her I was the product of abusive parents, foster care, and rape. I told her I couldn't read or write and had been pimped out on the streets by my brother. I made up a husband named Jose, a drug dealer from Colombia who got shot in a drive-by. My children had been taken from me. My car was repossessed. Janie fought back tears for most of our conversation. She slowly began opening up to me, too. She was on Prozac and Nembutal. She had to leave college and go into a live-in care facility for depression. She thought her father might have molested her when she was little. At the end of our date, Janie gave me a long, sincere hug and a modest tip. "Take care of yourself," she said. "You know, there's lots of services in this city for women like you." "Thank you," I said. The money felt coarse inside my hand. I did one more call that night with a guy who wanted sex, was done in 10 minutes, and paid me in 5s. I rode the unicycle back to my apartment, took a long hot bath, and went to sleep. I ignored all the calls on my beeper. It was a full 2 weeks before I began looking for a new job near my campus. I spent all the escorting money I had saved on overpriced housewares. After my call with Janie, I started therapy again, contemplated joining a support group. I started eating more vanilla ice cream and hot fudge sundaes. I wrote cryptic poems in my journal that I didn't even understand. At night when I was alone, it wasn't the faces of all the paying men that I thought of, or their tongues, or their penises. It was the big blue young eyes of Janie, looking at me as if through the lens of a camera. I was a piece of detritus that she saw, that she cried for, and the life I represented. It was as if she was looking at me through a prism and seeing only one thing. The whore, Juliet had said. And in fact, she was right. I have finally become the whore.